the image.
This is what we saw.
This is it right here.
All
This picture.
throughout.
This is our childhood. This is how we saw everything.
Wow, and that's what they saw.
What's good, y'all? It's the Demouchets React, and we're back with another video. Who we got today, C?
Today we are back with another American reaction. Super excited about this video, guys. If you're new to us and we're new to you, make sure you scroll down, hit that subscribe button, and turn on the post notification bell because we're on the road to 100K. And we cannot get there without you guys, all right? Join the family. Without further ado, let's get into the video. Let's say Carnegie. Yeah.
Carnegie.
What's good, y'all? I appreciate you for coming to my talk. My name is Victor Muthama. I was born in Aga Khan Hospital in Kenya to a Kamba father and a Lua mother. I moved to America at 3 years old when my parents came to study at Pitt. I was raised in East Lib, the real East Lib, in the seminary apartments. I lived with my two parents, my two sisters, two cousins, aunt and uncle on my father's side, and an uncle on my mother's side.
Ooh, y'all was packed.
The apartment was jam-packed, but looking back at it, it was a pretty loving time. Though the seminary was a diverse and relatively safe environment, East Lib was not. It wasn't the gentrified, commercial, hipster East End you see now. It was engulfed by poverty, which, as we know, leads to a multitude of other problems.
Right.
As immigrants, it's important to know how to deal with your new surroundings. And it's especially important, if in the situation, to prepare your children to do so in your absence. So I think this was the intent of my elders as they reminded me to stay away from akatas. Akata is a derogatory term for African Americans. I didn't understand why at the time, because I knew nothing about propaganda, media, or anything else we'll discuss today. But as soon as I went to school, I realized it might be because the kids that looked like me but didn't talk like me thought I was an African booty scratcher. So you can say I noticed the divide very early. It was very difficult to find identity between two groups that looked at each other some type of way, yet existed so interconnectedly. Now, on a microcosmic level, I consistently had to take up from my slang-speaking friends to my family. I had to defend my unique-looking food and clothing to my friends. On a much larger level, the U.S. government saw my family, especially my sisters and I, as purely Kenyan, even though America was all we knew. But though I'm very centered in my culture and speak Swahili.
Okay. What is an American African? Wow, I've never heard it like that before.
Yeah, in between this race in America, usually code switched between
AAVE, English, and native tongue. I've never heard that. American African.
Fluently. When going back to Kenya, I'm consistently reminded of how American I am. My African side was told, you are acting just like an American, but you are African, you're not black. And my African American side was told, you not from Pittsburgh, you from Africa, but you from here too, for real, for real. Although I didn't know it yet, a lot of other Africans were experiencing the same identity crisis under the same oppressive umbrella that made my parents seek a better life in America. How do you find identity exist in a community where you are all classified black by the government, but do not view each other in the same way or with the same respect? So to understand this deeper, it's essential we look for context and history a little bit through the eyes of some black thinkers that knew considerably more than I do about the trajectory of indigenous melanated people. For now, let's look at Marcus Garvey for his beliefs in the importance of a mass migration, and Dr. Frances Cress Welsing for her work in studying the psychological origins and effects of white supremacy. Garvey, Pan-African godfather, wanted a mass migration to Africa on the Black Star Line in order to help the journey of healing our people from the perils of white supremacy, especially on an economic level. This is relevant because a mass migration to Africa was necessary in Garvey's plan, but the mass migration occurred in the inverse of his plan. The number of African immigrants to America eclipses the number of American immigrants to Africa. Now, on the other hand, Welsing, a clinical psychologist, discussed the psychological origins of racism, white supremacy in her book, The ISIS Papers. Welsing does not separate racism from white supremacy and attributes racism, white supremacy to the reality that whites are the global minority, which results in an insecurity that leads to overexertion of superiority due to fear of genetic survival. In other words, if racism is destroyed, we'll all mate interracially, and it is socially understood that children of mixed parents are black, and they're certainly treated that way. So from a
okay, so we mentioned that
true.
Before in America.
Yeah, that's 100% facts.
Yeah, and so on that video, we got a lot of mixed reviews. On one hand, Americans, especially African Americans who are in the United States, they agreed that, yeah, it is accepted. Like, and again, I think that goes back to that 1% rule. If you got a drop of African American in you, you're black.
Something about you is going to come off you as your lips, your hair,
right,
anything.
Right. And it was like, and our African supporters were like, black Americans is the only people who just take everybody in. And I think that's because of, how the generations,
We tired of the drama.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So we do come off as, you know what I'm saying, like in our minds we do want to put it in and stuff, but at the same time we do know what type of world we live in.
I feel like at some points the argument could go.
You can't speak for everybody.
Exactly.
That's the thing.
Exactly.
We just can't speak for everybody.
But let's speak to, like, I have first cousins who have a non-black mom, right? Because they were not raised around us, they acknowledge that they're mixed or biracial, but because they were not raised around us, they identified more with their non-black mom's family.
Right, yeah,
right?
that makes sense.
So, yeah, that can go a lot of different ways.
This whole conversation is pretty deep, man.
Yeah, definitely.
At the age of 3, moving to America and then growing up in America and seeing the lifestyle of how we do things, well, more so in his area he grew up in, and then being viewed opposite the rest of his life on both sides.
Both sides. That's
you know
crazy.
What I'm saying? That is very...
Because that's like with
tough.
me, I wasn't born in New Orleans, but I was raised in New Orleans.
Oh, girl, they call you New Orleans.
You know?
They hear it in your voice. They see it in your cooking, your talking, everything. You walk.
My voice has changed. And that goes with my mom being born and raised in New Orleans. My grandmother born and raised in New Orleans. My other grandmother being an immigrant and raised in New Orleans.
Yeah.
So... And then my mom's dad's side is just New Orleans.
Yeah.
So I guess, I'm influenced more by that. But he only had a handful of relatives. So our point of view, we would look at him as being African, raised in America. But because of those group of, his group of family that he has with him, he's holding on to his culture, the way he talks, even... living here from the age of 3, he still have his parents' tongue because he's in the household with them. He has the things that they eat, their cultures, their values, their manners, all of that is African.
Yeah.
So it's like, of course, we can't speak for Africans and how they would view him.
But what the Americans told him was dead on the nail. They said, we know you African, but you one of us for real. Yeah,
because you've been here.
Like, you've been here. We vibe with you. We black. You know what I'm saying? So you're going to go through what we go through. Right. At the end of the day.
And how he said the government, they label him. Did he say the government label him as Kenyan? The government
labels.
But he's grouped with blacks.
Or I think it was said the government put them all in the class of black, but the community looks at him as Kenyan. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's
this is very complex. No, I think they said Kenyan, but he's
something
grouped
like that.
as black.
Yeah, that was a good bar, though. Yeah. We have to go back. But that was a good bar he had mentioned.
Phenotypic perspective, melanin is dominant. According to Kress, to avoid genetic annihilation, which is not actually genetic annihilation, simply a lessened white phenotypic expression, which would also be a lessened black phenotypic expression, she argues white supremacists must control every aspect of the societies that people of color live in. So the exercising of this control looked very different from my ancestors as opposed to some of my African American friends' ancestors. For one, African Americans were enslaved and Africans were colonized. which is a big distinction. Though they were both immeasurably damaging, slavery was far more brutal and lasted for a considerably longer period of time. But the details reveal some other key things. While the small numbers relative to whites allowed for a more brutal expression from whites during slavery, to conquer the motherland, a more subtle approach was necessary. Because white supremacists could not force Africans to stop speaking their language on their own turf, like in America, a more obvious difference would be that countries that were still colonized kept traditional languages, foods, and a lot of other aspects of life, even after adopting the language of their colonizer as the official language of the country.
Yeah.
In America, reading was forbidden by law for the obvious emancipative effects. But on the continent, illiteracy was due more to a lack of resources rather than its legality. With education and the monopoly of determining its validity still held and controlled by the colonial powers like the British, whitewashing curriculums, erasing traditions, and creating a system of subconscious self-hate were bound to follow.
It's funny how that we couldn't read when people, we was enslaved here, and then throughout the years they finally understood, vocabularies and whatnot, blah, blah, blah. And then when you finally get into today's age, you need to have an IQ level to be successful.
Oh, you brought up something there, babe.
Yeah.
You brought up,
It's big. But the IQ level is set to a bar to where it's so like, you know what I'm saying? It's like when you was here with it, you couldn't expand, and when you trying to come here with it, they're trying to stop you from expanding with it. But you need it. It's
Man,
Can I continue?
Babe, you brought me back to my feelings of when I was in school and how I overachieved.
Yeah.
To get on the same level as, my peers and
Yeah.
Child, you just digged up a wound.
And because a majority of the schools were boarding schools, kids like my parents had very little contact with their own parents, let alone access to the knowledge of their ways of life before the British. That fact is actually where the similarities between colonization and slavery control start to overlap. Because slavery preceded colonization by hundreds of years, you saw a lot of regurgitated tactics. Eurocentric religious school curriculums, Eurocentric propaganda, colorist social hierarchies, socioeconomic exploitation of indigenous people's resources, etc. But throughout the years, the differences in how we were educated about each other, especially through New Age mass media, became apparent. The stereotypical views perpetuating images of poverty and low socioeconomic worth became the basis of fear and shame, influencing our interactions with one another.
Yes.
Africans were just poor, swollen-bellied children.
This the image.
This is what we saw.
This is it right here.
All
this picture.
throughout,
this is our childhood. This is how we saw everything.
Wow, and that's what they saw. Wow. Wow. Look at the images that they painted. Oh my God.
Yeah, that's hard, y'all. This is crazy. So this is the exact image that we was, fed with. I'm talking about television will come on. We kids were in front of TV if we're not outside, and this is what is pumping in our minds every day or every other week whenever we turn TV on about Africa. And I'm saying that you guys is looking at us as like we some jailbirds. We in so many different affiliated games, party
That's
animals.
a school.
That's a school. That's not a
If
jail.
I didn't know any better, the top picture. If I didn't know any better, I'd say that's my school. Because that's how we look.
But the picture alone is like, okay, like when we have plenty of pictures like this back in school when we get together, but it will be like a celebration of, either we're about to go to the next level of grade. We just get together and say, hey, let's all take a picture for memories. The school book year was about to start popping off. Everybody getting ready for pictures. Like this type of moments was, yeah, it was, this is water washed. Like.
Imagine, now y'all have heard our stories of what we saw, our personal stories of what we saw, and what we didn't really think of Africans any type of way. But this is all we saw. We saw the hungry children. We saw the huts. We saw the people with the lions. Think of us being children seeing this, and that's being the image that we see. We didn't see mansions. We didn't see people going to school. And if we did see people going to school, it was only some of the schools, like the schools where the children had to shave their hair regardless of the gender. That's what we saw. We were fed things like, oh, this is all Africa is about. We didn't see, like they fed us things that was one-sided. Of course,
very one-sided. Yeah.
There may be, some, like, I don't really want to say this because I don't want it to come off as mean or not mean. I don't want y'all to misunderstand what I'm saying. Like, like some of the tribal people who stick to their beliefs what I'm trying to say. They stick to their beliefs. They didn't become modernized. That's not the right term, but y'all get what I'm saying. Like we saw that. And it's crazy how this is what they showed y'all. And I feel like reality TV does not make it any better.
Nah, it's a tool. It's a tool, and it's powerful, and they know how to use it to the best advantage because, again, we know media right now is such a ongoing futuristic thing.
It's crazy.
But drop in the comments, let us know what your thoughts is about this image. How you guys did come across these videos, how it made you feel when you came across these type of pictures, and things of that nature. Because we want to get in detail about that.
Yeah.
Because for us, as as transparent as always, we want to feed you guys real life information, reality. You feel me?
Yes.
So
hold up, wait before you go.
Drop that in the comments.
Thank God for production companies like Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
Where so many of our youth is watching Netflix now, and they can discover the African movies, the African shows like Blood and Water. That's what it's called, Blood and Water. Chief Daddy. Y'all know we like Chief Daddy.
Chief Daddy was hard.
I can't think of some of the other ones, but we're seeing a different side, so many different sides, and it's interesting, and we could see beyond the propaganda.
A few of us can. Can. Some of us really look at this and be like, oh, this is normal. This is the television. This is the channel.
Mm-hmm.
But for other people, the few of us, we can look at this and be like, at one point, they was showing us this, and now you're starting to see the season shift of Netflix or whatever, channel you working with, and you can see how they're starting to unveil some things in front of your face. Like, the truth is always going to be right there in front of your face if you just notice the transition seasons of how they've been operating for a long time. And for a perfect example, you look at Disney when Mickey Mouse was in black and white, and now he's in color, and now he has a, you know what I'm saying, like things of that nature like that.
Wow, man, that's crazy.
That's crazy. It is.
That needed money donated to them by the UN. 25 cents a day. And he smelled like onions. African Americans were just drug-selling, drug-using criminals that only like rap and basketball and were no good for anything else. Neither of us created these stereotypical images, yet their perpetuation creates an effect in our interactions, down to creating our own self-hate name tags.
So, I gotta speak
That's hard.
on this.
That's a bar. That's a bar.
A lot of people don't understand. Okay, let me not say a lot of people don't understand. There was a comment made, I think it was on our mixed race conversation video that we had, about Barack Obama not being fully black. So you see the images that we saw of Africans, right? And for us to have a black president.
A black president after
our
years.
forever president.
Yes.
I feel like now y'all can see why we say that he's our forever president, no matter what, in our lifetime. I'm glad that y'all got to see. Y'all got to see that we were not just getting drunk, party animals, going to jail. I'm glad that y'all got to see that.
Right,
so
right.
glad.
That's a thing called where you...
And his wife and his children.
And his whole family.
Yes.
There's a thing called, like, there's this little thing that we say, like, you open the door for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So when we see things like this, it's more than just hope. You know what I'm saying? It's history because it can be done again.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It could be repeated in such another level. It encourages the children to want to be something that they can finally see in life.
Yeah,
you know,
to say that they can be a president.
Yeah.
Like I remember, this was Real Housewives of Atlanta, I believe. Phaedra, attorney.
Mm-hmm.
She, when her son was born, her first son, I think, she used to call him Mr. President.
Yeah,
I don't even
yeah.
remember if Barack was our president at that time. But for her to like just speak that over his life, Mr. President.
Right.
And I forgot what she called her other son, but it was like, that was his nickname. And I just love that. Like, you, man, hope.
Just akata, an African booty scratcher. But unless we address the core psychological issue, common problem, and common enemy, our two cultures will be forced to coexist but will struggle to blend. Now, on the surface, it's just stereotypes and quiet petty quarrels. But the more you dig, you find that colonization and slavery created on the global scale a larger version of the house Negro and the field Negro, to quote Malcolm X.
And again, this is something I've always questioned, and I never understood that. When it comes to race, it's like, how can they have this one body of race, regardless of their location? Though they may have different, lingo's and speeches and whatnot, they can say things, in different languages, but this is their race.
Right.
You can look at this race, and then for us, I'm not black, I'm African.
Right.
Or they be like, I'm not this, I'm Afro this, and I'm like,
yeah,
I understand what you're saying, but
or there's a divide.
Is there a divide?
Are you speaking blacks in America, or are you speaking Africans? Because I was going to talk on.
I'm talking about as a body of black people.
Oh,
like
well,
we are,
for
like
me,
if the world was to push a dang car right now and push all black people on the side, you was gonna be over there too.
Yeah,
that's all I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Definitely, but because of history, we do have to. We have to be honest and real with ourselves. Although we're all black, or if you choose not to say that you're black, we all have this melanated skin, right?
It's the melanated that's gonna distinct you. I mean, that's all I'm saying.
I feel like we have to be honest and say, yes, we are African Americans. Our descendants came from Africa. If you feel like your descendants didn't come from Africa, oh well, baby, that's on you, okay? I ain't trying to persuade you to say whatever, all right? But
just listen for the part you like.
Yeah. take what you want.
Take what you want.
All right.
From another part.
We were not raised there. We don't know the culture.
Okay.
We didn't grow up in the culture.
Okay.
But we have to be honest that we do have a culture here.
Okay.
That our people on the plantations and our people up north who were not on the plantations have created here.
Again.
And because, not even talking about the Africans, talking about the blacks in America, we are divided within ourselves.
We are.
We're divided from class. We're divided on the education. We're divided on skin color. And that skin color has always been stupid to me. Because my mother is a light skinned. And my daddy is dark. Not D-A-R-K. D-A-W-K. He dark.
You see.
So,
hey, don't do my photo like that now.
No.
Hey.
So for me, like when people say, "Oh, I'm light skin," not me, but light skin is better, or if you have this,
that's just kind of what he's saying though. Like the verse and the breaking the people apart. They made that thing.
Let's even talk about hair texture.
Hold on, before you even do that though, the same thing still the same thing though. So if you put a big line, all the black people are going to be still be over here. Yeah. But if you put it in brackets, everyone have a different culture.
Yeah.
That's what makes them feel that they're not, black, or they're different, or they're
I get it. But okay, so the hair texture. I remember when I was younger, I had like a smoother hair texture. And I remember I was darker than this as a child. For some reason, I was darker.
I'm sorry, I got to mention this. As in the black community, and let me know what you feel about this. But when it comes to hair texture, we wasn't taught of the my hair texture is this type, like A type. What is it?
4A,
4A,
3B, and all that.
You was taught that?
No.
I
didn't see that until the YouTube era came out.
Right, like that's not something that a lot of people would know.
I don't know, but Dion done messed me up twice, y'all. Get on him.
I'm so sorry, y'all.
Okay, so my hair was a little bit smoother back then, and they would say, "Oh, what you're mixed with? Black?
Wow.
Mixed with black? I saw your mom. She's so lighter than you. What is she? She black? She black. Why? Because somebody is lighter or they have a straighter hair texture that they have to be mixed with something. Okay? We mix with black on black around here.
That's it, that's all?
That's it, that's all.
Okay.
Even years after colonization, African minds and values are paralyzed with the effects of cultural Stockholm syndrome. As for the African American psyche, post-traumatic slave syndrome has been a generational heirloom, proving the test of time like one of grandma's recipes.
Man.
Talk about it.
We continue to compete for most assimilated Negro positions. At best.
All right. And this is why I had made a mention in the last video. Y'all can quote me on it. But I had said something about you can't tell a person that they are lazy or they're not trying hard enough or striving to be successful when they still have these type of things that still in play. What do you call it?
Post-traumatic slave syndrome.
That's a real thing.
It is.
Some people are not going to break that chain or that barrier level like you may have and be successful and have all the chains and goals and cars and girls if that's what you're into. Like, they're not going to have that type of big extravagant lifestyle because of what happened. Mm-hmm. Some people are still real bound. Like,
some people are in bondage. Some people are still in bondage. But nobody will grow higher than they know.
And that's why some communities are set to where bondage, like, they have a community, but the police are here.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
a lot.
It's a lot.
It's in the way that we speak to one another. It's in the way that we view our spouses, the way that we view our families, the way we discipline our children.
Even our kids.
It's in a lot, and we have to unlearn and learn things. And that situation right there can go.
You could teach a dog
deeper.
You could teach an old dog some new tricks too, but some of them just don't want to.
And you know, wait. For me, my grandmother. I've shared this before. Slavery missed my grandmother by 67 years.
Yeah, we talked about this.
67 years, right? My grandmother worked in the homes of wealthy people, or maybe not even wealthy people, but she's raised their children. Mm-hmm. You know, she cleaned their house. She cooked for them. So my grandmother come from a different era. And I remember I did a history project in school. That's what started my love for history. Mm-hmm. The stories my grandmother told me about it all, and I'm kind of veering off, so I'm going to push it back together. I made an A+ on my grandmother's stories because she was in between an era, just like we're in between an era as millennials, right? She was in between an era of people who used to be slaves or new slaves, and she's still living. And it's like she has seen so much.
That's like the people who still living after all the wars. You know what I'm saying? The veterans. Like,
yeah, her dad died in Pearl Harbor.
See, it's like
that so. Whoo, Lord, child.
Rather than regaining top-down control of our community, proving the test of time like one of grandma's recipes. We continue to compete for most assimilated Negro positions. At best, rather than regaining top-down control of our communities and natural resources, both on the continent and here. Overall, we were both under a means of control that affected our psyches. This beef is corny. Francis Cress Welsing might have shed some light as to why white supremacists sought to dominate an entire world of indigenous peoples. Marcus Garvey knew there needed to be a migration out of America to join back into Africa. And though a lot did, it ended up being the other way around. White supremacy still has its clutches on every aspect of indigenous people's societies. On the bright side, though, the days of no conversation between African Americans and American Africans are slowly ending. There are a lot of solutions that can continue to unite us while helping us leave the systems that continue to wreak havoc on our communities. But here are a few. I know getting on the same page will take time. Healing is not a race, but we must heal.
Okay, so this is what he says. Sometimes we got to put the screen a little bit smaller.
Mm-hmm.
So this is solutions that he think we have. Well, whatever. So these are the solutions. Therapy. Black therapists are well versed in the effects of both. I agree with that. Education.
Therapy is important.
Yes, yeah. Education. Oh wait, there's a stigma on therapy. Y'all go to therapy, please. It's really good. It's really helpful. Education must have integrated learning about the tactics used to separate us. Investigative history. Hip hop. Hip hop and music is where the culture becomes one.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Think tanks on tech, STEM, and empowering decentralized governing communities with resources. Rites of passage, not just graduations. Ooh. The end goal is to form an existence outside of its control in harmony. Ooh.
So if y'all need a screenshot that, go ahead and you can definitely put this into active. This is at the beginning of the year, so you know what I'm saying? Yeah. I think equality does come into play whenever power favors the people.
Right.
Whenever power favors the people, not a child, meaning that a group of people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like no one is calling for anybody to erase anyone's culture, upbringing, or any of that. The problem that we're having is the unnecessary beef. A lot of people say, oh, y'all didn't live slavery. Slavery was so long ago. But again, like people like my grandmother and other people in our families, communities, it wasn't just slavery. It's the effects of slavery that our people had to deal with. In the South, where we're from, our families had to deal with Jim Crow. Our family had to deal with civil rights movement. Like, it's so much bigger than just slavery. It's post-traumatic slave syndrome.
Right. Some people are not sensitive to the history and trauma that people had went through.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't really cater to the understanding or misunderstanding of why a person is and act the way they do.
Right. And a lot of times I've heard a lot throughout my life is, they sold us, and it's a bigger part of they sold us. Not so much that, it's just
to an extent
hearing things about history and not going dig into it yourself. That's what it is. But y'all don't realize what they went through while we were going through what we went through here. But a lot of places in Africa just became independent less than 30 years ago. Less than 30 years ago, y'all. So it's bridging the gap. It's having uncomfortable conversations with an open mind, hearing them hearing us. Mm-hmm. And how can we help each other have a better quality of life?
Realizing that we may be moving forward in life, but in reality, we're actually moving backwards.
Or standing still. Because people aren't, a few of us are thriving to be successful. We know what we need in life. We know what it takes to get what we got to get. But in moving forward, we're actually going backwards because of what history. In order to move forward, you got to know who you are. And to know who you are, you got to go back. So that's what... Oh, come on, see. That's what it is. And I feel like people need to open their eyes and start operating in such a way like that. You know what I'm saying? You can still move forward and get everything that you want out of life, possibly. You know what I'm saying? But to know who you are, you got to look over your shoulder and see where you came from. Mm-hmm. And in order to do that, you got to go through a lot of stuff. And it's going to be... It's not going to be easy.
It's going to be eye-watering. You feel me?
Yeah. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be painful. It's going to be uncomfortable. But you got to remember the purpose.
Yeah.
The purpose is to bridge a gap of people. I think we said this in one of our live streams. But think of it this way. There was an ancestor, your ancestor, who had to go through something that we're speaking on. Think about them. Think about, let's say, the ancestors that was taken from that land. Think of the fear that they felt. Think of Oh my God, my family don't even know I'm gone. Oh my God, I was out getting the vegetables. My mama waiting on me. I'll never see my mama again. I don't know if I'm going to see my mama again. I'd rather die than have them put me in bondage. Think about them people, not them people. Think about the ancestors thinking, I can't even think where this is, on that bridge. When they, what's that, Virginia?
It was a
North Carolina.
It was a tourist video we had seen.
No, it was something in my own research.
I'm probably not sure.
When they got to America, they turned back and they all went back in the water and drowned. Purpose.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So think about them. Think about and think about the other ancestors who was there looking for their people. You saw Johnny. Well, it wouldn't be Johnny, but you saw my son. You know, we all. Now I don't know about we all, but it was mandatory in our households to watch Roots every summer.
Yeah.
And Queen. Yeah. Every summer.
Yeah, I'm him.
Yeah.
I was afraid of TV too.
Yeah, and look at me. Oh my God, Chicken George.
Nah, I was telling my mom, I don't want to watch this, Mom.
For real.
I was just like, but at some point, I started to understand and have a big respect to why, I had to be put in front of the TV like that.
Yeah, so do your part. Do your part, all right? This is a good conversation. I feel like he was one of the best people to speak on this.
Powerful, man.
Because of his dynamics and what he went through.
Hey, some solid information right there.
Yeah.
That is hard.
So we hope you guys enjoyed this video with us. Like this video, subscribe, turn on the post notification bell. We have enabled our super thanks if you would like to support the channel that way, as well as our join feature to become a VIP member of the channel. Send in your reaction requests through our description box below. We'll see you soon. Peace.